This meeting is being recorded.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing? This is the E and L talk show. Once again, I'm Eric Shaw coming to you from my man room as usual, and my homeboy Les Miller's here. What's up,
Yes,
Les?
sir. Hey man, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, doing good. We're gonna deviate a little bit off of what our normal basketball conversations are. We have a great guest here. I'm actually going to let Les take a hold of this because it was his idea, and I truly support, his decision. So there you go, Les.
Yeah, so we have a good friend of mine, Tony Paige. He's got a resume longer than my leg, so we're gonna let him talk a little bit, give us a little background about what he's done, and you can take it away, Tony.
I appreciate it, guys. I mean, I feel in hostile territory a little bit because I'm from the Bronx. So, born in Harlem in the old Harlem Hospital, which is now a parking lot. Grew up in the Forest Projects in the Bronx. Went to Taft High School, and my high school yearbook, I said I wanted to be a professional athlete or a writer. So I said I'm going to play Major League Baseball. I make a lot of money, and everything will be fine. And it didn't work out well. But I did become a professional writer. And my first journalistic question I ever asked was at Taft. They brought in Roy Campanella, former Dodger, 3-time MVP, and member of the '55 championship team, was in a car accident, paralyzed. And he was telling us about life and everything. And I'm up in the balcony. I guess I was a junior. And he said, "Anybody have any questions?" So I yelled out, "Who's the hardest pitcher you ever caught? Was it Drysdale or Koufax?" He said, "Neither." He said it was Ryan Duran. And I told this story to Earl Monroe, doing a piece on him. And Earl said the same thing I said. What, the guy with the thick bottle glasses that couldn't hit the side of the barn? I said, yeah, that guy. And, and I said, well, I didn't know nothing about this guy. So I looked up, and he was a 4-time All-Star. He was a member of the '58 World Championship Yankees. So he had a nice little career, but he just was wild all the time. And from there, I worked for the Black Press and the Amsterdam News, worked at NBC for a little while, was in media relations for the '88 Olympics. Started the sports section at the City Sun newspaper, which I'm most proud of, because when they wanted me, they were trying to recruit me from NBC to come take over and start the sports section. And I said, well, black papers do like 1 or 2 pages. Why is that worth my while? I said, no, we want you to do 4 pages a week. And you can do supplements like, Black women in sports or an Olympic preview and stuff like that. But I always used boxing as the anchor because it was easy to cover those sports. I covered the Knicks for 3 years in the early '90s. And what I'm most proud of is when I started, I was up in the hockey press box, which was at the top of the garden. Then next year I was in the ramp, which overlooked the court, which wasn't a bad seat. But my last year, as a full-time covering the Knicks, I was under the basket. The security, the celebrities were to the right, the Knicks bench was to the left. Those seats don't exist anymore. Those are paid seats now, but that was one of the best seats in the house, to be on the floor. And I became president of the New York Association of Black Journalists, president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, member of the Track Writers Association. I was inducted into the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame in 1999. And I just found out this year I'm being inducted into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame.
Nice.
I love all sports. And of course, 19 years on WFAN radio as the overnight host. Like I was on when the Yankees right after they won their first championship. I was on when the Devils won their first hockey championship. I've been on for Tyson fight getting beat, and the overnights was special. I don't listen to sports talk radio that much anymore because it's, once the callers start going, I think they were smarter on the overnights than they are during the day. But
I agree.
Yeah. And let people talk, because not everybody is a polished broadcaster. Like some people might take 30 seconds or so to get to their point. Sometimes during the day, if you're not to your point in 10 seconds, they're looking to cut you off. But everybody has something to say. And I'm still writing. I retired from the Fan in 2019, and I've been writing for the Daily News in New York since, 96. And I still doing stuff now. I have a piece on Earl Monroe in the can. He has a charter school named after him in the Bronx. So they're looking to go take pictures of that. Just did a piece on David Diamante, who's the boxing ring announcer, the guy with the dreads down to his calves. I did a piece on him, and working on a piece on Jackie Robinson, the activist, not the ball player. So that's going to come out as soon as I talk to the CEO of the foundation and the museum. So I love to travel, and like I said, it's funny. I've covered fights in every borough except Staten Island, but I live in Jersey now. I'm still a New Yorker, always be a Bronxite. What can I say?
There you go. Well, I got a question for you. Being that you've mentioned just in this little piece right now, some prominent, notable athletes over the years, and how easy being in that niche is it to get like access to these athletes and these legends to be able to do these stories?
Well, once you build up your reputation, like you get clips and people can see what you do, and you covering games and you're around, then they call you for things. I remember once when Muhammad Ali's book came out, one of the publisher called me and said, "Look, we're having a bus trip to his old training camp. Would you like to go?" Like, what am I going to say? No. But it was the Associated Press, the Daily News, the Post, the Times, and me. And I said that I was a member of the Black Press, and I said I thought that was pretty good. But I tell you a funny story. I was doing a piece on Larry Doby, the first black man to break the color barrier in baseball in the American League, and it was some big affair downtown New York. And I told the PR guy I wanted to talk to Larry Doby, and it was a white guy, and he said, "Man, he's hard to get to know and hard to talk. I don't know if he's going to do it." I said, "Well, what's the worst he can say? No." So I asked him, and he said, "Let's go into this other room so we can have some privacy," because I was doing it for the radio. And he was fine. We went in there, and funny, some waiters came in and moved some tables. He said, "Hey, get out of here. I'm doing an interview." And he was, it's how you perceive yourself, how you carry yourself. I remember interviewing Archie Moore, the former light heavyweight champion. At 80 years old, he sounded like a Harvard English professor. You talk to Kareem, and it's like trying to pull teeth to get him to say something, which we all know about that. But if you apply yourself and you're there, it's funny when you work for a smaller member of the press, like the Black Press, for instance. The New York Times and Daily News and the Post, they're going to get the first crack at some of these guys. But when they do something smaller, like there's an event at a Boys and Girls Club up in the Bronx or in Brooklyn, and one of the lower members of the Knicks is going to be there. The Knicks know you're covering the team, so they'll ask you, "Do you want to do that?" I say, "Absolutely." You don't turn down the opportunity. Some guys, it's all publicity can be good, but if you have a rapport with the guys, or the organization knows you, they will give you certain players to talk to. So I've never been turned down. I'm to the point now that when people push stories for me, I said, "No, I don't want to talk to that guy. I'm not interested." If you're I can't say the word, but if you're a pain in the ass, I don't need to talk to you at this stage of my life. Earlier, if they assign you a story, you do it, but now, I don't want to talk to him. He's going to be arrested next week anyway. Just
right. Yeah. So it sounds like it's a two-sided process by which you could be recommended to talk to somebody, but you also have the first right for refusal. But at the same time, you have an opportunity to say, I have to build my resume of interviews so that I can show validity in my product that I'm bringing out.
I'll give you a perfect example. I went to Florida A&M University for a year. My great aunt had a building named after her, and I walked into the newspaper office and I said, "I'm Tony Paige, and I can cover sports, and I can do this." And and the guy said, the editor said, "Well, the sports department is full, but we need somebody to do a piece on the psychology department." I'm like, "Oh man, psychology." And I said, "Okay, how long? Who am I talking to? When do you want it?" And I turned it in, and they ran it, and he sat me down and said, "You're going to be a writer." I said, "What, based on doing this piece on the psychology department?" He said, "No, you know how many people come in here, they want to write sports, they want to review movies, they want to review books, they want to write poetry. I don't need that. I need some writers to do this, cover this department, that department." He said, "You didn't bat an eye, and you did it. So many people come in here, when you tell them that, they turn on their heels, you never see them again."
Right.
Another time when I was at City College, my advisor said, "I think I got a summer job for you." I said, "What is it?" "It's a startup publication." I said, "Oh, great. Sports, entertainment?" "No, healthcare week." I'm like, okay. But I said, "You know what? I could learn something there. Who knows?" And the funny thing was, when I blew my knee out in high school, they put me on a Cybex machine. So one of the stories was, "We want you to talk about the Cybex machine." So I know that firsthand. And it's a machine that as you push your leg forward, the machine pushes back, so it's like resistance, so it's building up the knee. Right. But if I could have said, "Nah, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just hang out." You don't know what opportunity is going to be there, even though it's a job you really may not want. But I think I can write about anything, so it was enjoyable.
Yeah, that's funny that you said that, because just bringing back the mental picture in my head of the different gadgets that I had from my health issues. I could write a story about a wound vacuum, believe it or not.
They always
because
say,
I inquired and I learned about it. So
they always say, talk about and write about what you know.
right, right, and do your research.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the kids today. I mean, you guys know we had to do a book report. We went to the library. Now you got a phone. There's everything you need right there to do a book report. And you know, I tell people, you know, when I grew up, we had phones that had a rotary. You had to dial, and they're looking like, "What's that? What's that?" I was on WCBS radio last night. We were talking about Tim McCarver passing. They wanted me to come on, and I said, I remember what I remember first about McCarver is my father took me to Macy's during the World Series. And I had a transistor radio the size of a cigar box, and nobody knows what a transistor radio is.
Yes.
But I was listening to the game, and McCarver hit the home run in the top of the 10th, a 3-run homer, which gave them the win. And everybody was around me listening on the radio. And then when he hit the home run, they all got mad and left. But it's if I hadn't brought the radio, I don't have that memory.
Yeah, well, that's funny. Once again, like you just pinged the memory. I can see like 5 or 6 guys standing on the corner with their newspapers and, you know, on Wall Street or, you know, anywhere in Brooklyn, anywhere. And they're listening to the game and waiting to hear that, you know, that ball hit that bat, you know, and that's funny because those days are long gone now.
Yeah. And Tony, when Eric and I were kids, we used to listen to the Knick games and keep the score books. We used to keep the score.
Via radio.
Yep.
Via radio.
Baseball games, I kept score, and you know, nobody does that anymore.
Yeah. But it's funny because indirectly we learned the statistical part of the game of basketball. Mm-hmm. And if you followed any sport, whether it be baseball, you could follow, you know, strikes and, you know, balls and hits and errors. You learn the strategic part of the game statistically. And that's only really everything that I guess we're mentioning is basically saying that as a reporter or as a writer, you got to pay attention. And if you don't pay attention, you're going to be in trouble.
See, now you just triggered something with me. I just did a piece for the Daily News about 3 weeks ago on Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. Yeah, the documentary on Showtime. It's out now.
Stand, right? Yeah.
If Stand. It was really, really good. And when they asked me to do the story, I said, the reason I remember him is I took my oldest son for his last haircut. You know, father taking the son to the haircut. And we went to the black barbershop, and they had LSU versus Loyola Marymount, the game where Stanley Roberts had 20 and Shaq had a triple-double with like 20 rebounds and 12 blocks, and Mahmoud Abdul Rauf had 34. He was Chris Jackson back then.
Right.
And I remember the funniest thing, Shaquille was a freshman and nobody could pronounce his name. It was like, it's what? Chakwaki? What's his name?
Yeah.
But I remember that. And when I told him about that, he said that was a hell of a game. Because, you know, that was, you know, Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball were in that game.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And you know, Kimball died a short time later. But, you know, that's another memory. In fact, the reason why boxing always was with me, my grandmother lived in Harlem on 130th Street between Convent and St. Nicholas Terrace. And one day there was like a ruckus going outside, and she said, "Look out the window, see what's going on." And I said, "I can't really see. Everybody's around pink Cadillacs." She said, "Oh, Sugar Ray Robinson's in the building." And I'm like, "The fighter?" I was like 8 years old. And then I knew who he was. I said, "What's he doing in the building?" "His sister lives in the building." I said, "Oh, okay." And all the kids were around his car. And I thought that's another memory. You know, you know, if I wasn't there, I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, let's change a little bit of a tune here. What really, from your vantage point, I mean, I don't know if you were strategic in this or not, but what made you go towards the boxing environment?
It's characters are the words. They're
of whom, you or them? No,
them. They're I always, the reason I told the City Sun I wanted to concentrate on boxing is because in that sport you learn the sport, you learn television, you learn the manager's angle, you learn the trainer, you learn health, because guys are going to get cut, guys are going to get hurt. I must have did 4 fights where guys died in the ring. You have to learn that kind of stuff, and always the fighters may not be the most educated, but they're decent people. I remember I was doing interviews for international television up at the Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York, And I had a TV crew with me, and I was doing Marvelous Marvin Hagler after he was done. I asked him, "Hey, Marvin, can I talk to you?" "Yeah, when I finish this guy, I'll talk to you, no problem." So while I'm waiting, this other guy shows up from a local affiliate. I call him Biff Haircut, because he was like, "Oh, I'm going to talk to Marvin." I said, "Yeah, well, you're going after me." "Oh, no, I'm on deadline. I got to go now." Well, Marvin said he was talking to me. So the guy's finished, and he just cuts in, "Marvin, I'm so-and-so." And he said, "Okay, I'll talk to you, but I'm going to talk to this brother first." And he's like, "Well, no, I'm on deadline." I said, I'm talking to him first. "You don't understand. I have to get it done." And he gave him a look that he gave Thomas Hearns. And he said, he said, "You can go after him or you can go home." And he said, "Oh," and he stepped back, and Marvin said to me, "How you doing, brother?" I said, "I'm doing quite well."
Yeah, right.
It's those kind of interactions that you go to smelly gyms. You have to deal with everybody. PR people want something. It's like you learn how to deal with so many different people, and you learn the skill. I remember, which is so sad about boxing today, is we used to go up to training camps and watch the guys spar. That goes back to the 30s and 40s, where you can see what they're working on and see what they might have a weakness. They won't let us watch sparring anymore.
Wow.
I haven't done it in a while, but when you go up to training camps, they jump rope, they hit the heavy bag, they work the pads, and then they have the interviews. It's like they will not spar. They're afraid you're going to see the weakness and write about it. Well,
Right.
That work. And I know it was so many different people. You get to meet Don King, you get to interview Bob Arum and Dan Duva when he was alive, and the HBO people you dealt with, the Showtime people you dealt with. You get invited to those press conferences, and they know who you are. And that's the thing, when you can write and you're good at it, they remember you and they bring you in for different things. The strangest thing I ever remember, they had a press conference at HBO, and the press conference was over, and I'm hanging around talking to the president and some other guys. Somebody came into the office, said, the OJ verdict is coming down. So they said, "Oh, let's go to the main." They had a big studio theater which held maybe 50 people. So they put in CNN, and OJ was innocent. I'm the only black guy in the room, and I felt extremely uncomfortable. And I'm like, "That's time for me to go." Because I'm like, I'm not making a comment about anything, because there's not going to be any right answer here.
Right.
But it's things like that. But boxing is always, basketball players and football players and baseball players. I mean, I love baseball, but there's something about boxing. It's not the same sport that it was. It's not a major sport anymore. There's too many champions. There's too many organizations. You look at one point, baseball, horse racing, and boxing were the three main sports in this country. I guess it's football, basketball. When it's World Cup year, it's soccer. Boxing is a niche sport now.
Yeah, and they're trying to push soccer as like the more on America's soil as well, to catch up. But the boxing world really brings to mind, to me, like you said, there's so many different aspects of that environment, and I can see why they would take the viewing of the sparring part out of the equation, because those evaluations that and I could just picture in my mind the scenario of reporters all around the ring watching these guys sparring and see maybe the champ get knocked down or something like that.
It happened with Tyson. My place I worked for, they had a TV crew, and they got that. That goes all around the world, but you don't want that to go out.
Right, exactly, because the momentum is everything, in all sports, and getting that edge, that might be that one little edge that the opponent might need to see, that's going to propel him to victory.
I remember covering the Knicks going way back in Red Holzman's second term. And I wanted to do a piece on Mel Davis from, Boys High School and St. John's, #1 draft pick. And they said, "Oh yeah, just go down to the gym with training." And the gym was at Pace College back in those days, down the hall, City Hall. So I go there, and they say, "Oh yeah, go to the gym." I go to the gym. I said, "I'm here to do blah blah blah." He said, "Okay, you can go in." I said, "I can go in where?" "You go to practice." I'm sitting in the bleachers watching Earl and Clyde and Willis and the Busher and Lucas, and I'm like, I'm sitting in the bleachers. I'm look at this, and I get to watch what's going on. When I covered the Knicks during Riley's era, they moved up to, I think it was Purchase was where they were at the time, and they put all the press in this little room, and there was a diamond-shaped window, and we took turns just watching practice. That's what they're working on. Oh, they're pick and roll. Okay, just we're learning. We came back the next day. They had newspaper all over the window. We couldn't look at it. And I've heard other people tell the same thing. They go to different teams, like you used to be able to watch practice. They don't want you seeing anything. You know? They don't want you talking. You know, if you want to talk about the game, but they don't want you to give the insight of what you saw.
Yeah, that's the same here. I believe it or not in Charlotte, because the Charlotte arena for the Hornets is right across the street from where I worked at Bank of America.
Okay.
And like they had like big glass windows because they have like a sports recreation room or a court basically with a lot of baskets in it, like right on the outskirts of the building, and it's big glass there. They tinted that glass and then put stuff up there. I think after about since I've been there, since they built that place, like almost right away. After a couple of weeks, they said, because people could see what they're doing.
Right.
So I don't know. I find that to be kind of ridiculous when it comes to a team sport, because even the NFL does that. For the Panthers, they put a big fence up and blocked people from being able to look at the practices on the practice field. Yeah. So I guess there's some trade secrets going on guys making layups, right?
I guess so. I think they're not as good as they think they are, maybe, because if we might notice what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're not working as hard as we know guys did in the past, because and that's another question. I mean, based on the things that you've been seeing and just using boxing as that gauge, are the athletes better today than they were before? Are they working as hard? And from your vantage point, are they giving the same effort of the cliche-ish, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali type of boxers of old?
Well, I think all athletes, they're giving effort, but their 100% is not the same as the guys from the past. I heard a story once. NBA player would say, "Yeah, we played back-to-back games, and then we on the road." I'm like, back-to-back? They ain't doing that today. You can barely do back-to-back. It's you have chartered planes, you have nutritionists, you have physical therapists to take care of you. If you need that worst word of load management, which I don't understand what that is. I mean, I grew up, Cal Ripken broke the record in baseball for most consecutive games. But I remember Billy Williams back in the 60s and 70s. They thought he might break it. But these, you look at their career statistics, 162 games, 162 games, 162 games, over and over and over. Guys today, I mean, if somebody plays 82 games, you might as well give them something. Everybody seems to get hurt. It's like in baseball, pitchers always get hurt. And I don't understand why, because it wasn't that bad back in the day. Guys threw 300 innings. Now you're not coming near that.
Right.
I talked to I had Leo Mazzoni, who was a pitching coach for the Braves. He was on my show at the Fan once, and he had Glavin's a Hall of Famer, Smoltz a Hall of Famer, Glavin was a Hall of Famer. And I said, "What's the secret?" He said, "I have my guys throw every day. You have to keep your arms strong. You throw every day." He said, "They will not hire me now because no, you can't have them throw every day. They got to take a day off. They got to go do this. They got to go do that." And it's a shame. I think today it's not boxing. It's basketball. It's all sports. For some reason, as they've gotten bigger and stronger, they can't. What's the word? They can't produce on the same level as some of the other guys. I mean, Will Chamberlain. He played every minute of every game one year, plus the extra overtime. Who's going to do that?
Exactly.
And when you mention it to them, they look at you like you're crazy. Like, well, I got to take. I can't. If they were negotiating a new contract and they said, okay, we're going to have each team is going to do 3 back-to-back games, the union would be, oh no, we can't do that.
Right. And that's funny. But that's funny. It's funny. Let's say using that example. But I think the more prominent kind of example, because I would look at the least athletic players of old. And that would include, like, when it comes to football, linemen, and when it comes to big men, like people like Billy Pauls, who we know was not a great athlete.
Right.
But Tom Bowinkle, and they never miss games.
No,
they never miss games, man. Sluggish running, Billy Paul wiping his hair back, running, red as hell in the face. But he played, like you said, 82 games, and a guy like Emmitt Smith played almost every down. And now you got guys, Elliott, who plays like every third down. And he gets hurt, but he's getting hurt.
we go back, we remember football players that went both ways. That's unheard of today. That's just not going to happen. The management doesn't even want you to do that. It's like, just stay in your lane. I mean, what happened to guys like, Deacon Jones and Bubba Smith, who played every series? Or we're taking it out because this is passing. What kind of a football player are you? Are you not a complete football player? You talk to pitchers, like, no one asked this question. Like, you pitch 5 good innings and you're out of the game. Like, don't you want to be in for 7? Or have you been convinced or brainwashed that, it's not, we got to get you out of there to get the bullpen? Then the bullpens are burned out by the end of the year anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's
we're talking about Will Chamberlain, and he never found out of the game.
How about that? Yep.
How crazy is that? For playing all those minutes, never found out of the game.
But it's funny, Les, you're right. But he was given such an effort. And people won't go back and watch, but watch, he's given an effort. He's running all over. He'll go out and play a person on the perimeter.
Yep.
And it's just really sad to me, because the counteraction to our opinions are people saying that those athletes were better than we were at some point in time. So I don't know what the true measurement is, but there has to be a gauge that reflects this load management issue in a proper manner, so that we'll know why these things are happening. It's kind of like doing a study.
It's the money.
Right.
Yeah, it's always money. It's
all about the money.
Yeah.
If you look at some guys' stats, the box score every game, try and see how many guys are playing 40 minutes, not 48. They seem to cap it at 40. A lot of guys, LeBron's going to stay there when the game's on the line, of course, but the starting 5 going 40 minutes, I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like not a bad thing, because it gives the opportunity for bench players to participate, to get them involved and invoke like that, them still being part of the team, because otherwise you're sitting there watching. It's not like Nate Bowman who's going to get in like 2 minutes like every month, but it involves them.
But it also gets back to the money, because the guys on the bench are making a lot of money too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got your 6, 7 men, and they're making as much as some of the stars.
Yeah, but don't forget one more thing, though. One more thing you forget, unless you're right, what the contract says. Because if you sign a contract that says some guys get contracts that said they got to get at least 15, 20 shots, blah, blah, blah. So I'm pretty sure if you're a bench player, there's some responsibilities or testimonies that you have to say what you're going to do or what you can do to meet, the terms of your contract. Because I'm a bench player. I'm going to sit here and give me $4 million. That's cool too, but I'm pretty sure that they have to be productive as a teammate, or an employee, so to speak.
What always got me is I understand you play a certain amount of guys and you reduce the lineup as you get into the playoffs. But you mean to tell me, even the guys at the back of the bench, they can't do anything? I mean, they can't play a defense. I remember Mike Reardon with the Knicks. He was go in there and give a foul. That was it. You can't get guys doing that. I mean, I like Cam Reddish, who was with the Knicks, and now he's with Portland. He starts the year and he scores 20-something points. The coach says he's got a great defensive player, and then he sits on the bench for 50 games. I'm like, he can't do anything now. Everybody, nobody plays defense in the NBA, so I don't want to hear that anymore. Like, he doesn't play defense.
Tony, I just became your best friend, man, because no, I'm serious. I don't watch NBA basketball much because it's very annoying to me. But I'm here in North Carolina, and I saw Cam Reddish play in college.
Yeah.
And he's a good basketball player, man. Yeah. And he just needs a chance. And then and they're messing with the guy. And he's proving that he can do certain things. And he's got to get away from, the detriment that's going to kill his career, which that happens to a lot of guys. A lot of guys that happens to, but he's a good example.
Was he 23? I mean, he's just a baby.
He's a real good example. He's a real good example. He's not a bad guy. I guess the reports on him is that he was a recruitable, a draftable, prospect coming out of college because of his conduct and his whole picture of, who he was.
Right.
And to then sit him on the bench and not play this guy, you never know. You never know, because like you said, Mike Reardon, he had to leave the Knicks and he went to the Bullets. And then he was scoring like 20 a game.
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that left hand jump shot.
Well,
So
I remember it took Bradley on the All-Star team that year. I said, no, Reardon should have went.
that's right. Yeah, but that's once again, we're always gonna have the discrepancy of people's evaluation of talent and the people that make the decisions.
Yeah.
But to not play a player, I think that there's something wrong with that because I'll sit on the bench and make 20 million. You know, I'm pretty sure both of you guys would too. You know,
No doubt, no doubt.
I can wave a towel, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's a skill set, man. You know, Austin
ML
Carr all the way.
ML Carr, exactly.
You know, and it's but I just look at the whole body of work of professional athletes, and you know, you're aspiring to get to that certain level, and then that becomes this juggernaut of, like you said, money, contracts, rules, and people's personal feelings, which are always in play. That other people make or break a person's career.
Yeah.
More so than you have control over making your own. The echelon, Michael Jordan, you know, that Tim Duncan level, they'll always have an opportunity to do it without the nonsense. But everybody else has to go through the gauntlet of the nonsense.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a story in the paper today, a pitcher on the Milwaukee Brewers. He had an arbitration hearing. It really wasn't that much money to part. And the guy came out of it, okay, they won. I don't get what I wanted, which wasn't that much more. But to listen to them tell me what a bad player I was after winning the Cy Young a couple of years ago, and he's a free agent at the end of the year, I don't think he's coming back. You know, there's sometimes, you know, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. You save a couple of bucks, but are you going to keep the player?
Right. And they have harsh, and you know, it's funny how they'll smile at you, you know, walking through the hallways of the arena. But when it comes to contract time, they will find every fault that they can about you.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's unnerving to know that when you walk in, it's kind of like even working in corporate America, which Les and I did for 30 plus years. Walk into that office, and I know what I've done over the past year. You know, I'm a superhero. You know, that's my job. And I go in there and they start telling me things I can't do. I mean, it's like anything to deter, and especially for minorities, that's what happens a lot. They come there with a defensive package versus an offensive package on you, and what you've done, and it's crazy because it's infiltrated. It's a work environment problem, not a sports issue. That's what it is. It's like the work environment, you know. And sports is just a little bit different because there's so much more money involved in the process.
Right.
You know, but it's a fun environment anyway. And are you planning on continuing on with some sense of reporting and writing?
I'm still going to stick with the Daily News as long as the paper's around. I mean, that's the paper I grew up with. It's funny. When I went to high school, I would buy the Daily News in the morning going to school, and the Post was an afternoon paper, not the right-wing rag it's become now.
Right. Yeah.
But I enjoy the writing. I'm trying to, my agent and I are trying to I got a book that she has the manuscript we're trying to work on. Excuse me. But I enjoy the writing. I'm you know, got some baseball stories lined up with the Mets and the Yankees during the season, and but in fact, I'm looking forward to it. Probably in May or June, I'm just going to sit in the Yes Network truck and just watch them do a telecast, because I've done stuff like that before for NBC and USA Network and HBO. It's behind the scenes. That's what I like to do. You keep your mouth shut and just watch and just see how they do a game. I don't think many people get to see that, you know.
Right. And so it's, I guess, the technical aspect of the business.
Yeah. It's another, you know, if you know, when I'm at the point, because I'm retired, they don't want to bother me. And I said, no, you can bother me all you want. So they called me and said, could you do this other piece on David Diamante, the ring announcer? Sure, no problem. But I always throw stuff out at them, and they seem to like what I'm coming up with. It's just the newspaper business today is just not what it was when we were younger. You know, I remember, especially the News and the Post would have the high school all city team. And I thought that was such a big deal for the kids. You know, you see your picture in the paper, and they all had high school sports editors back then, but that's gone. The boxing writer is gone. There was a guy that he used to cover the Daytona 500, but he also worked in TV, covering the TV section. And he used to go down there all the time, and I put him on my show, talk about the Daytona 500. And then they cut out the budget for that, and then his job went also. A lot of people getting laid off these days. I know MSG is laying off some of the technical people, and
Wow.
Showtime laid off a bunch of people also.
Yeah, because even now, I think even like news studios aren't even using like many cameramen anymore, because it's all one person and remotely using 3 cameras. Because we got interviewed here when the things I did here with Nike, and there was like no cameraman in the room, and it was one person controlling 4 cameras, like remotely, So, but I want to jump back for a second. Yeah. Give us a shameless plug on this book you're getting ready to write. You said.
Well, it's called A Few Words Before I Go. It's just a look at sports talk, politics, and family, and just some of the things I've covered and places I've been and things I've seen. Like I was a photographer for a paper in Harlem called the Black American, and I went to my editor said, "Can you work a camera?" I said, "Yeah, why?" I said, "We want you to go to Uganda with a bunch of the black press. We're going to interview Idi Amin." I said, "Oh, the dictator. This should be good." And got to stop in Libya. Dealt with Muhammad Ali. I will give you this. Muhammad Ali is my favorite, not just fighter, but athlete, because he stood up. He stood for something. A lot of guys.
Absolutely.
Contract, and that's it. And I was covering Duran Leonard, their 3rd fight at the Mirage. They've opened up the Mirage, and it was the worst fight of the trilogy. But they brought out Muhammad Ali, and all the press got crazy because they just wanted to take pictures and get autographs. And at one point, he was at the buffet by himself. So I just walked over to him and I said, "Listen, I don't want an autograph. I don't want a picture. I just want to say thank you for all you did to make my job a little easier." And he looked at me and he said, motioned me to come close and listen, because he could still speak back then. And I said, "Oh man, he's going to give me some words of wisdom I can take for the rest of my life." And he whispered in my ear, "You're not as dumb as you look."
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, you probably said that 1,000,000 times. So I'm 1,000,001. It was
right.
The other time he had another book. Like I went up to his training camp. We had another book about diversity, and he took the press and Roy Jones Jr. We went up to a high school in Yonkers, and he came back to the Garden at the Play-by-Play Club, which doesn't exist anymore. And I sat down next to Ali, and the PR guy said, "Whatever you guys do, don't talk to him about March 8th, 1971. That's when he got knocked down by Joe Frazier. He don't want to talk about that." And I said, "It's funny. He talks about anything." So they opened up the doors and let the fans come in. And they're like, "Oh my God, Muhammad Ali." And they ran over, and the first guy says, "How was it March 8th, 1971? He got knocked down by Joe Frazier. How was that?" And I'm like, "Oh Lord." And Ali started talking, and then he started mumbling like you couldn't understand him. Mm-hmm. And everybody was like, "Oh, it's the Parkinson's. Oh, I'm sorry." And he walked away, and I looked at him because we were talking to him all day. "What the hell's wrong with you? What was that all about?" He said, "I'm just having some fun."
and like you said, it's something about him that he's just going to be a regular guy, and that's. Yeah. And he's not going to let anybody take that away from him. Even with all his successes, all his fame, it's like he's a normal person, and he let you see that. Like when the camera's not on, and you said what you did, which is funny because that's kind of like the same kind of response that I would have less with the doc. If I were to run into the doc right now, I want your autograph, man. I just want to just say, "Yo, man, just just dab me up, man, and I'm happy, and that respect that you provided to him, he reciprocated, right, and came back and said, "Yeah, man, don't tell nobody," but and that's great because that's what they need too. They need that type of stroking, not the kiss your ass stroking, but just treat me like a man. Like a regular person.
I was doing an interview with Connie Hawkins at some Hall of Fame thing at Tavern on the Green, and we're talking, and the doc walks by, and he puts his hand on Connie, and all he says is, "Hello, God." He said he kept walking.
Wow.
I knew guys who knew Malcolm X, and they get this bigger than life persona, and can you approach them? He said, "Man, once the cameras are off, I'm just a regular dude. It's just he understands what's going on when the camera's rolling, but you turn off the tally lights, and then he's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So
that's the same with Les. Hold on. That's the same with Les. No. You turn these cameras off, and you see a different guy.
I know, right? No, well, I know that though. I know he's a different guy off the camera too. But anyway, So your top 5 fights that you covered.
Ooh, I won't put them in any order. I'm just trying to think.
No, any order.
Let's see. Well, Bo Galata, the Riot fight in the Garden. Foreman knocking out Mora.
Boo! I remember that fight.
Okay.
Let me think. Oh man, I think fights I covered. Bunch of them. Lennox Lewis and knocking out Galata, because we found out later that the idiot Galata went and took a Novocaine shot in his knee. I don't know if the guy was licensed or not, but he hit his knee and he was just out of it.
Yeah.
Another one.
Okay.
I'm thinking like after Tyson versus Galata in Detroit, because that was the fight Galata quit. And people he was walking past me and people just they were throwing their $12 beers at him. That's how mad they were. And I know I'm going to forget something else. And even though I didn't cover it, I saw it on closed circuit. Ali Frazier won at an old theater in the Bronx, which doesn't exist anymore. And it was just, it was so funny. When you think of the technology today, back then, it was a black and white screen with no audio and no undercard. You just sat in the dark for like 4 hours waiting for this thing to start, and you couldn't hear anybody. But the electricity in the room was crazy. And I know I'm going to think of,
and a lot of smoking probably going on too.
Absolutely. It's funny when there's a lot of great photography, because I take a lot of pictures, but not in boxing and ringside anymore, just like in the gym or something. But the photographers, the old time photographers said, we're never going to get those great pictures anymore. So why? Because it was the haze of the smoke, the cigarette smoke, and it made a different kind of picture. Now everything's so sterile, so you don't get that anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
and it sets a tone. And it sets a tone.
Yes. And most of the pictures back then were in black and white anyway. I know I'm going to think of some other fights as soon as we get off the air.
It seems like you're focusing a lot on the heavyweights. Maybe
Roy Jones Jr. saw him when he lost to Montel Griffin, that got disqualified. And then he knocked him out in the first round in the rematch. It's because Montel was talking a whole lot of crap, and Roy didn't want to hear it. So, but I remember, I always use heavyweights because that was everybody wanted to hear about that, because that's what always drove the sport.
Right.
But it's heavyweight boxing is just not the same anymore.
Yeah, but during that, I guess your career, you had, it was a really nice, at least for me, a nice balance of different weight classes where you had, like you said, Roy Jones, you had Sweet Pea, you had Trinidad, De Hoya. So there was so much level of competition throughout the weight classes, and never mind Marvin Hagler and Mark Breland.
Hers, all of that.
I remember doing a Pernell Whitaker fight in Atlantic City. Oh, now I'm thinking of another one. But he got knocked down like 10 seconds into the fight, fighting Diabello Hurtado from Cuba. But here, this is a more memorable fight. Did international television for Lennox Lewis and Tommy Morrison. And Morrison was one of the all-time idiots, because he was supposed to fight Lewis at the MGM Grand when they opened. They were going to split $16 million. And he decides, no, I'm going to take a tune-up against Michael Ben of Brooklyn, who knocks him out in like 95 seconds.
Yeah, Morris he passed away, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah. Well, this leads up to this. Lewis had lost his title, so they had to fight in the basement of the convention center. And my notebook looked like a Jackson Pollock painting. It was blood splattered everywhere because Lewis had cut him up, knocked him down about 4 times. And okay, so that's it. No big deal. They're still trying to rebuild Morrison months later, so he's going to maybe fight Tyson. Then we get I was working the radio, and somebody called me from Vegas, said, that fight that Morrison's supposed to have is canceled. I said, what happened? They won't tell us. When the commission won't tell you, something really wrong. Well, it turned out he tested positive for HIV.
Right.
Going back to when he had the fight with Lewis. That's what we were all afraid of. So I was lucky. My notebook was covered in blood, but I wasn't. My
Right.
broadcast partner did the whole fight with his hand covered over his mouth because he didn't want to get any blood on him. And I remember USA Today Network, USA Today called me and wanted to get a comment. Since you worked that fight, what did you think? I said, I didn't think I was in danger because I think the odds were 85 million to 1, but I didn't want to be that one. And I always, and then Morrison kept saying that, I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it. And he eventually died of AIDS. But he fought 3 times after that. I think Mexico, Japan, and West Virginia. He shouldn't have been allowed in the ring. But again, Les, as you said, money talks.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And you can't get away from it. So it's always there ready to taint whatever we're doing,
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. So what's going on going forward?
Still like the writing. Like I said, I picked my spots. I mean, years when I retired from the Fan, they called me in and asked me that I want to be considered to be the lead columnist. And I was like, sure. And on the way home, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? No, I'm retired. I don't want to do that. I don't want to cover Yankees games and get home at 3 a.m. I just pick my spots. It keeps me busy. My wife and I like to travel a lot. We did a Panama Canal cruise for New Year's. And that's when I found out I was being inducted into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame because my Wi-Fi wasn't working, even though we had the package. And when we got to Panama for some reason, then it clicked in and I found out. But just the traveling and just, finding articles that I like that I think people will like. I mean, I like writing, but I hope I bring a topic or go somewhere with a subject that people don't know about. That's why, when I did the piece on Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, one of the sections in the documentary, David Aldridge is a reporter who I've known for years. And he said, everybody gets upset when these athletes take a knee. But anybody bother to read the 3rd stanza of the national anthem, which is basically a threat against runaway slaves? But nobody seems to get that far. And Mahmoud said, I'm glad he mentioned that because, nobody, they look at these guys, why are you kneeling? Oh, because you hate the police. No. Or you hate America. No. I'm kneeling because black men are being killed, innocent black men are being killed. No, that can't be it. Well, we just told you what the real reason, and people just don't want to hear
it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I
recommend everyone seeing that.
Yeah, it's oddly enough.
Great.
Yeah, oddly enough, it was a lack of acceptance to the words that come out of my mouth or anyone's mouth is a level of disrespect that just is beyond my understanding. If I say no, like they say, no means no, right?
Right.
And I'm telling you that I do not dislike the police.
Right.
Let somebody rob my house. I mean, I say that about drug dealers. Believe me, drug dealers love the police. You rob their car or rob their house, and 911. What's your emergency?
Right.
Come on. I mean, so it's a deeper rooted denial that people take when they don't accept the answers that you give with respect to that topic, and that's their loss. And I've come to grips with that, and I don't, mess with it anymore. But that's kind of sad. It's very sad to me,
But it's I can always find something to write about. I always try to find something a little bit different. Because I remember when I was at the City Sun and I did a piece on George Young, who was the general manager of the Giants, and they had just won the Super Bowl, I think the first one. And I just called him out of the blue because I wanted to talk about the lack of black quarterbacks in the NFL back then. And he was telling me stories about Carl Douglas, who was, I think, from North Carolina A&I or A&T, I can't remember. And he said, I told him Johnny Unitas was still a quarterback. He's an old man, but you need to follow him around. And he said, all the black guys on the team said, no, you don't want to follow Johnny Unitas. What are you going to learn from him? He's an old man. Said, well, he's a Hall of Famer. You should learn about him. And he didn't. So when the story ran, a guy called me up and he said, I'm really disappointed in you doing a piece in a black paper on George Young. I said, why? Why didn't you do Lawrence Taylor? I said, I'm a weekly paper. They have something on Lawrence Taylor every single day. Are you a Giant fan? He said, yes. I said, well, aren't you at least bit interested in the guy who built the team? He said, well, yeah, when you put it like that. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Well, you could have a white guy in a black paper. This is the guy that put the team together. And the funny thing is, years later, the Fan was celebrating some anniversary, and I went, and George Young was there, and I walked up to him. Said, you probably don't remember me, but I asked you about the black quarterbacks. Carl Douglas. You're talking about him, and other guys wouldn't listen to him, and he remembered.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and it's tough. I mean, that's another sore subject, I guess, that no one wants to be confronted with the aspects of having to answer why you're not hiring Black people.
Right.
That's like, you know, a blasphemy question to them, you know, because it puts them on the spot. And but you have to answer that question. You
Well,
know,
here's a funny little tidbit. Here's a Kansas City Chiefs that won 2 Super Bowls. Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator. Now, he had a lot of problems off the field, but he's been pretty cool the last couple of years. But he doesn't get interviewed for anything. And then I saw on the wire today, he's being interviewed for the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator job. So it's like a lateral move. It's not, it's like, I understand maybe him and Ron Rivera have a connection or something, but how do you hire the Philadelphia offensive coordinator who lost the Super Bowl, but you don't even interview the guy who's won 2?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's destined to ever become a head coach.
yeah, and I tell you, when the blinders are on, they're on.
Yeah,
You know, no matter what. I mean, it's like me trying to influence somebody, which sometimes it does work to get a person to feel comfortable at least, but that only works with them being comfortable with me.
right.
I'm not going to make them be comfortable with you. So you going in for the interview, well, I trust Eric, but that guy interviewing there, that guy Tony, I don't, you know what I mean? That's what it is. And I just don't understand that evaluation of a human being, man, and especially when it comes to trying to get a job done. Once again, it's a job, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that it'll get better, but there's so many other problems that it always gets masked by other things that are going on in the league. I mean, that goes for all the sports leagues, and fortunately for the NBA, that by attrition, like younger, minorities are getting jobs because they're the ones going for them. And so that's where it's a saturated market with minority coaches. So though, they become an option because it's so saturated. National Football League, it's not a saturated market to that level. You don't have 60 people vying for head coaching jobs.
But what bothers me most about the NFL is their Players Association. I mean, I've interviewed guys who retired and they can barely walk across the room. They're in so much, they've had hip replacements and knee replacements. And then when they try and get some money for, just cost of living or just to take care of their medical bills, they're like, well, I don't know. They don't play anymore. I said, well, the reason they played is they put you in a position where you are. You're supposed to. What was the thing in Harlem, the basketball tournament? Each one teach one.
Right.
Each one, yeah.
I think like they got away from that. It's like, hey, you're not playing anymore, so you don't count. But that bothers me. And the other thing about the Players Association, don't get me started. Don't give me this. I signed a $50 million contract and 35 is guaranteed. Where's the other 15? Just give me the 35 and like look at Carr with the Raiders. We're not giving you $40 million on the contract, but we're cutting you. Like, wait a minute. In baseball, basketball, I'm not sure about hockey, but you get fired, you got your money.
Yeah.
Right.
Get traded, you get your money. I mean, nobody gave me a buyout. I sure would have liked a buyout.
And it's that these guys,
right.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's so many different levels of types of contracts that's like, guaranteed contracts or non-guaranteed. And the non-guaranteed, that's risky. When it comes to it, that's like we're investment people, right, Les? And that's a risky investment to invest in a person that you're not really going to pay them, but you expect them to perform. Right. There's a lot of risk involved in that. And, from a mental side of it, because that's important, right? The mental capacity of a player to give his all because he knows he's being compensated for it. Whereas if he's not being compensated, he might not chase that wide receiver down, so I'm just saying, and personal feelings and things in your head have to play into a part of that athlete's process. Right. So and contracting, that should be the same as well. And they don't give football players much leeway.
No. And most athletes, you have to, someone has to beat it into you early. Your number one draft pick or you made the team, you got to start saving your money right then because you don't know. It's nice that Tom Brady played 20 years. Kareem played 20 years. Most guys, you're not playing that long. I saw a thing online where Charles Barkley was talking about when he's at the Sixers, and Julius Erving told him, how many cars do you have? He said, I got 6 cars. How many can you drive at once? He said, you have no idea how long your career is going to last. He didn't know he was going to be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
He was starting out.
Right.
And my mother always told me, when you get a job, take the first check, that's yours, buy whatever you want. After that, you start saving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and like, what are you going to buy? A stereo system? I'm not going to buy something.
Yeah.
I don't need a $300,000 chain.
I like that example, though, man. How many cars can you drive? How many TVs can you watch? I'm not going to ask that question around Les, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
TV
I've
Central,
seen
man.
him at his worst. As
Now, I
a
remember-
matter of fact, he's got one of my TVs.
Yeah, I did have one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really crazy, man, because it's not hard to invest $3 million.
No.
And I take that as like a low number. It's
Right.
not hard. If you made $3 million right now, somebody give you $3 million, it's not difficult to go to the bank and just the basic thing, buy a doggone CD.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
and they have classes that teach them
Right.
about their
But
finances.
you know what though? When Shaq signed that $300 million contract, they said to Shaq, "So what you gonna do with that $300 million?" He says, "I'm gonna try to keep it."
Yep.
You don't have to try to make 300 into 600 million.
No.
He wanted to be able to keep 300 million all the way. I mean, now he's way above that, but I mean that made a lot of sense. I want to keep my 300 million.
It's like,
Right.
all these guys, I want to open up a restaurant. Okay, is your major business? No.
Mm.
It's you don't get out of your comfort zone. See, everybody thinks I'm going to open a restaurant and it's going to be famous. And no. It's like you said, put it in a CD. It makes money for you. You may not, you try to stock market. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to lose everything. And
Right.
that's, it's how many athletes have we known that they said this guy's going to be a Hall of Fame? He blows out his knee, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
There was a fighter.
Too many.
I know a fighter who I asked him, he was fighting for the title. I said, what are you going to do after boxing? He said, oh man, let me win the title and I'll think about that later. So of course he loses the title fight, never wins, never becomes a champion, loses his eye in a fight.
Wow.
And he was a smart kid, so he could do other things, but not everybody's that has a plan B, as I say. You should have a plan B and D.
Yeah, and that's true. But I understand that people sit back and say, well, you could lose your money in the stock market if you don't know what you're doing. You're not, I'm sorry, but you're not investing the money yourself. It's not like I'm gonna do like Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd and walk into the exchange and just start buying and selling. There are professionals that do it. It's no different than if you need a fence to be put up. Now, me personally, I'll put the fence up myself, but I know home improvement.
Right.
But if something I don't know how to do, I'm going to hire a banker and pay him a commission to invest my money. No different than Elon Musk does it. And, every person that's investing anything, there's small funds you can put money in, mutual funds, all kinds of stuff. You can invest in 3-card Marley. Are you kidding me?
I always thought all these kids in college and one and done in college basketball, I hope you took business classes and marketing classes. Since you're going to be great, at least get a jump on what's going on. I mean, it's nice you can hire people to do that for you, but kind of know what's going on with it. Just not giving you a contract and say sign here, and you didn't see the different things in the contract that's not good for you. Learn how to speak, because you're gonna, like I said, we're assuming you're going to be big. Okay, well then you're going to talk to the media. You're going to be marketing. You're going to be talk to different people. You might talk to the general manager about how to make the team better. So you have to know how to communicate. And there's so many, I don't know if people write letters anymore, because everybody, writes something online and use autocorrect and hope the spell check's working. But it's, periods and commas seem to disappear nowadays.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's horrible. And that's sad, because it's really weird. I was send something out today, and I'm always like very conscious about putting, like you said, putting a comma in there, proper caps and things like that. And then I proofread what I do, and I can't type because I only have one hand, but I use those technical features to help me pronunciate or to, write a sentence in a proper manner. And some people just don't care. So all those aspects that they're being thrust in to have to pay attention to, it's trial by fire or it's learning by fire. You throw them out there, in front of the media with all this money, and you're gonna be like, what's the boxer's name? Mitch Green.
Oh, Mitch Green, yeah.
Yeah, gonna be like Mitch Green.
What about Patrick Ewing when he was at Georgetown? It's like we were offensive, defensive. Damn, that's the famous one, man.
And it's but it's that old saying, it's like when you're in public, watch what you say, son. And I'm kind of surprised because his Caribbean heritage should have taught him that, right, Les?
Sometimes you don't have to say something. It's that old thing. Or do you still beat your wife? There's no answer to that. You just,
I know.
No, I don't beat her. Oh, you used to beat her. No, I didn't.
Oh yeah, right. That's true.
I like that though, man. That's I'm gonna use that one.
But something, a little trick of the trade I do, even as long as I've been writing, I read a story over and over and over. Spell check the whole 9 yards, but I have a voice app on the phone. I mean, on the computer, where it will read the story back to me, and you'll say, "How did I miss that word? Oh shoot, that's the wrong tense or something." And it's I always do that before I send the story in. Just be safe.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. All you're really doing is using all the skill sets that you learned. In class, like you said, you did a book report every year. These are things that you forget about, and that's why I always say to people, like, people don't believe in the science anymore. And so if you don't believe in the science, remember that periodic table that was on the wall?
Oh yeah,
take it down. I guess lead is not lead anymore. All those symbols don't mean anything. So, but the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, those things do mean something.
They do.
And when that English class meant something.
Right.
And as much as people always, pander about, it's like, I speak this way all the time. I don't change. I'm not, when me and Lester just hanging, or I'm hanging, with fellas, I'm like, we know my same, bro. No, I don't do that. I'm sorry. I'm Eric Short the same way all the time, and that's how we should be.
Yep.
And if guys understood that, they would at least practice in the mirror, so to speak. Like people take selfies, right? You're looking at yourself, make sure I look good in the mirror before I go out.
Yep.
You should do the same with your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're saying the right things, and that's no disrespect to anybody. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get some messages behind this, but I will never ever have a problem with a police officer. Mm-hmm. I've never had a problem with a police officer. I speak to them properly. I enunciate what I have to say, and that's unfair, right, to say that about others. But I'm just confident of that I'm going to represent myself to the point where he's going to just do his job and leave me the hell alone and keep it moving.
Right. It's like when you go for a job interview, you have to be on your best behavior when you communicate. You can't go for a job and, yo, what's up, man? You lost the job right there.
Yeah. Or you walk in there and the guy interviewing is a brother. Say, hey, homie, what's going on, man?
I'm sorry, Tony. I laugh a lot.
It's like, wow.
Yo, man. Yo, you my boss now?
You do this thing or what?
But that's unfair. And if we and people see that, they would say, "Oh, why are you criticizing how we speak?" And it's like, you should be speaking better. I expect more out of you to do that. And it's not a knock on them. It's just say, be better.
Right.
Just be better.
If you act like that, the guy comes behind you, another black guy, dressed just nice, but he's, how you doing? I'm glad to be here. And tell me more about the job. He's got the inside track.
Right.
You can be more talented, but you're like, we're running a business here,
Mm-hmm. Come on in, young man.
We're not selling T-shirts out of a car,
Yeah, exactly. Come on in, young man. You stay right there, but come on in. And then you're disappointed and you're hurt.
Yeah.
But not as the confusion of not knowing why, and you're not accepting the answer as well. Because if I say to you, why do you not have a belt on? Why do you not have a belt on? And say, and this happened to me, like in July, we did a tournament here with Craig Booth, the guy that owns the documentary. And a guy was standing on the court while the game was going on. and Craig was reffing, and the guy was like, "Yo, MF, I'm a grown ass man. Leave me alone." So Craig called me and said, "Get this guy out of the gym because he's causing a disturbance."
Right.
And he gave me a hard time. And I was like, "Look, I have no hand. I have fingers missing. I have my feet are half amputated." I said, "I'm not a threat to you." I said, "Please just stop and listen to me." But that attitude that gets in the way, and he just didn't want to listen. And it was like, once again, we got back to Fulton and Nostrand. "Yo, I'm a grown ass man. Move away from me, MF." And then we had to kick him out of the gym instead of him coming inside and watching his nephew play.
Right.
That's what he was there for. And this is a constant thing that have to deal with people who are not willing to be accepting to what rules are set forth for them, how to conduct themselves in a certain place. And then when a police officer has to deal with that, I'm not giving a police officer a pass, but it's kind of like, why are you giving me a hard time when I caught you speeding? I don't understand that. You're robbing a bank and I'm trying to arrest you and you're arguing with me about that you're not doing that? I don't get it.
But you know what? It's a crazy thing though when you see it happen to other people and they be like, "Why'd you stop me?" Right. I would never say that to a cop. I'd say, "What's going on, officer? So and so." But a white dude, he was like, "What'd you stop me for? I have somewhere to go. Come on, what's your name? What's your badge number?"
Right. And you have to deal with that as well. Right. And that's the other side of the coin. You're right. Mm-hmm. And that's horrible, but that's them. But that's the receiver of the conversation, not the person that's the driver or whatever, but the receiver of the conversation, the police officer, is how he's looking at the situation as well.
What I'm saying is they basically, the black guy says the same thing to that officer, and he gets a different response than when the white guy says it.
And you're right. And I'm saying the receiver, meaning the police officer, getting that response back, he's dividing things up, minority, non-minority, because society has set that standard for him. True. That guy's black, that guy's white. And so now he is doing things based on those criterias as well, with a badge. With a badge. So he can descend some things less because he's not accepting that. I don't want no black guy talking to me like that. And even a black officer might have that same opinion. And so possibly on the other side, when it's a white man, you become more tolerant because you know the world in which you live in. And it's such a quagmire of thoughts that you have to process them like this as the incident's happening. And not all of us are capable of doing that. And then we make the wrong choice.
Yep.
Whether it be a police officer by going beyond what he should be doing, or me, the person, the citizen, who's being disrespectful to an individual who's deemed an authority. And I have to manage that. He has to manage that. But for me, like I said initially, I manage it well so far that I've never had a problem. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but so far I've never had a problem. A police pulled me over. He's giving me my license back and let me go because he's like, "Eric Shaw's cool," because of how I deal with them. I'm treating them like a human being, and I expect them to do this.
The first thing is, I don't get pulled over, so you got a problem if you're getting pulled over too much.
No, but yes and no. But and I'll take that. But I'm just saying. But once we get past that portion, I'm dealing with it in a proper manner. And the times that I've had, I've not gotten a ticket. So. And I'm from I've lived in Jersey, so I know as well. So
but something I when I joined the Boxing Writers Association, I was wondering how it was going to be because there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. But I was welcomed by big names like Dave Anderson of the Times and Bert Sugar, Barney Nagler, all these old time white guys who come way back when, and they welcomed me with open arms. So I said to myself, I want to be a role model for people who look like me, but I also want to be a role model for people who don't look like me, because I think that helps a little bit. Oh my! Like I've had people ask me on the fan, like, "Are you black?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" "You don't sound black." I'm like, "Okay, what do you want to?" And I don't even bother waste my time. So, okay, what do you want to talk about? Yankees.
Right.
I'm not taking that bait. Okay, I'm a black man. What can I do for you?
Matter of fact, I heard a show one night when you're on the overnight, and somebody said that to you, and I was laughing, I was howling.
What did you sound like? The guy from the movie More Money. It's like Amber. and he turned out to be a black guy. But and that's unfair. That's unfair to you. That really is. That shouldn't be part of the conversation.
But see, from my standpoint, okay, I can, I can do a step and fetch it imitation. I can sound, what he thinks I'm supposed to sound like. I said, I'm not even bothered. What do you want to talk about? You say you want to talk about the Yankees. That's what's on the screen. So what do you want to talk about? And he gets right to that point. I'm not going to entertain you, because I've had guys call me the N-word and hang up, and then that's when I get mad. I said, well, you ain't got the balls to just keep talking. Hang up. So you're a coward anyway. And,
right.
I probably said something about his mother, and I said, "Now call me back now." But,
right.
But that's a good segue. So, Tony, like, from the professional standpoint of you doing interviews, what is your criteria for trying to get to the point of what you're trying to accomplish in that interview? I mean, I don't want to dig too deep of a question for you, but like, what is it that you're doing in the process of, pre-work, the post-work, and the interview? What are you trying to accomplish? How do you approach it? And just give us a kind of like an overview of that process.
Well, some interviews are simple. Like if I'm on after a Knick game, and I tell my producer, look, give me so-and-so from the news or the Newsday. I want to talk to them about the game. And you just, you ask them about the game. If something happened, you'll talk about that. If it's a sit-down interview that you might be taping or you do live, you do your research and you get background on the guy or the woman, and you have a set. I always write down the questions I want to ask. You always save the toughest one for last, because someone told me once, if they get mad at the first question, they may hang up and you got nothing. I said, okay.
Okay.
You try and make them comfortable, and so they want to talk. And if you have 5 questions you want to ask, and he answers the 5th question first, which is the toughest one, you pay attention to what he's saying. Like, I broke my leg in the 4th quarter. So, okay, so when are you going to open up your business? You're not listening to what he's saying. You have to pay attention, and then you take it from there, and you just. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is when I first started at the Fan and I covered the NBA, I wanted David Stern as one of my guests. And he said, oh, man, great. What time are you on? I said, well, I'm on once a week, 1 to 6 a.m. in the morning on Sunday. And he said, Tony, I love you, but I ain't coming on at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I went to his office and I did an interview, and it went real well. When I retired, I called the NBA, and even though Stern was retired, I said, I'd like to get him on because he was my first big guest. And he came on and said I had to come back on because, when you started, and I don't mind wrapping this up. And sometimes, like, I know David Stern, I don't have to have a lot of questions. I know what I can talk to him about. But you have to be prepared. You should have more questions than you get to. Some of them are deep. Some of them, maybe you need a question that it's getting a little heated, so you want to turn another direction to calm him or her down and get back to what you're talking about. It's funny, one day, Dwayne Sanchez used to be a closer for the Mets, and he got into a car accident. His career was over, and I was talking to him, and I said, yeah, I'd love you to come on. He said, you want me to come to the studio? I said, Dwayne, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. That's okay, I'm up. And he came to the studio and he sat down for a couple of hours or whatnot, or an hour.
Yeah. Are you asking questions that you want to ask, or are you asking questions that are pertinent to that subject at the time, or are you combining that and using that other skill set that you mentioned of paying attention and knowing where to go?
Well, I see myself as a fan. Like, I've always considered myself a writer first. So doing the TV and doing the radio is just part of the deal. But I'm asking questions that I think the fans want to hear, or the listeners want to listen to. Because it's the same question I would want to ask. Right. And I hate to hang up and say, oh, shit, I forgot to ask him this question. But it's like, what can I, what I'm getting out of this subject is what I want to bring to the caller, so they'll know. Because, we're the eyes and ears. The press is the eyes and ears to these folk. We get into the locker room, we get get to interview them, and they get to learn from our interview. If your interview's crap, then they're like, well, either Tony's not a good interviewer, or they might be able to see that, boy, he's trying to pull teeth out of this guy, and it didn't work. But you keep trying. You ask them a question. A lot of guys will give you a one-word answer, and like you have to keep fighting. Like, I need more than that. Like, well,
right.
And but they give you, well, why? What do you mean by that? You give them a chance to expand, and they feel more and more comfortable. It's like, I think I told you, Ernie, I did a baseball special, and I taped stuff, and I had live stuff. I had a taped with Rachel Robinson. I had a tape piece with Larry Doby. I had live with Bob Costas. I had live with who was the other guy? I can't remember. A whole bunch of people, and and I thought it was a pretty decent show. It was a baseball night, and when I told my boss, he was like, "Oh, okay, good." I'm like, "What? That's it? I had Rachel Robinson. That's not good enough." And but I said I was happy with what I did, and I said, I do it the same way. There's nothing I would change.
Right.
You try to get, you try and get. As far as getting writers, that's the easy part. They know what the deal is. They want to come on because it's giving them publicity. But you still want to ask them the right question. You may know them and can joke around a bit, but you still get down to brass tacks. What happened in the fourth quarter? What was the argument on the bench that we saw on TV, but we didn't, and they'll say, hey, this is what's going on. And also, like I said, I try and put myself in a position of the fan, like the fan wants to know this. So I got to ask this question. It's for me too, because you might get an answer you didn't expect, which leads to some more questions you can ask.
Right. So you'll dig.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know, I think it was like 8 years ago when Anthony Davis was a senior in high school. And I used to cover the Jordan Classic every year with my scouting service as media. And all the reporters in there, there was about 40 of them in there. And they were all asking them same stupid questions. How do you like playing? What do you think you're going to get drafted? What's, how do you think is going to happen at Kentucky? So I'm like, I know the process because I know, and they should too, because they cover these guys because it's the McDonald's All-American team, right?
Right.
So they're going from city to city to city, playing against the states, but they're playing with the same guys every week. And it kind of gets to the point when they're showcasing their talents, playing in these, games like the Jordan Classic, you're playing against guys that you're traveling around with. Like kind of like the way the Washington Generals and the Globetrotters, they're always together.
Right.
And so I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask a question that everybody's asking. I want people to know what it's like and how you deal with playing with the same guys and giving it the same level of intensity of participating and competing when you're playing against the same guys like every week for a month. Like how do you maintain that level? And he came, I asked him that question. He was on the podium, and all the reporters were like, what kind of, like that was like a question that they didn't think of. And they were like, why didn't I ask that question? And that's and for me, that's the only question I got in, but that's my only experience of what you're saying. And so that question led him to come back to me afterwards. We're getting food and like in the press room. And he was like, man, nobody ever asked me that question. He said, quite honestly, he said, it's getting boring. Yeah. And he didn't say that at the podium, no. Yeah. But it's getting boring because I'm playing against Les. Like I'm playing against Les every day. Right. Every day, like like in front of people, like with uniforms on, a competitive game. And after a while, it does get, kind of boring because I'm playing the game. Same guys playing D against me.
That's one of the things when I interview somebody, and this is a personal thing. If I can get the guy or woman, whoever I'm interviewing, saying, that's a good question, that's when I know I did. Like Mike Ruth said that to me once. When other people, I said, that's a good question. I know I'm on the right track because then they'll answer that and it'll be real easy to flow on the next question and the next question because you've made them feel comfortable. That's the whole thing. You can be very, antagonistic with them right off the bat, and they're like, okay, how much longer we got? Because I don't want to talk like this much more. But
the guy's looking at his watch. He's like, my man, I only got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Being that I know he said that to me when we were getting food, if I was doing writing on that on the interview, would that be breaking a protocol as an interviewer to take what he said off the record and stick it in there, like in that casual conversation, and I said, what, afterwards he said, he doesn't like that guy. Should is that acceptable conduct as a reporter?
I would everything's fair game unless he said it's off the record. Because I would say to him, that's a good point. I'm going to put it in my story. And if he says, no, I don't want it in the story. Okay. Then asked and answered. But, most times when they tell you something, it's like, fine. Like sometimes I'll be doing an interview with a tape recorder and the guy said, can you do me a favor, turn the tape off. Okay. And he'll say what he, was really on his mind. So that, you can either use it in deep background or just get an idea of what I'm saying. Said, okay, put it back on now. Said, okay.
So it's like a little bit of a cat and mouse game there to some
degree. They understand. The smart athletes understand you have a job to do. They'll say, why? It's like, look, you're trying to get more famous. The thing now is you want to build your brand. Well, you get your brand built by more publicity, especially good publicity. And, you know, I'm not saying everybody's got to do a cream puff story on you, but, you know, we want to know your background. We want to know, okay, were you raised by a single mother? Were you raised by a mother and father? You know, when did you first start playing basketballs and any other sports you wanted to play or that you thought you were good at? You know, you just let them talk about themselves. You know, who was the most important person in your life? And if somebody asked me that, as far as sports, it's my grandmother. I got a million stories, and nothing against my mother and father. But my grandmother was the one that dragged me out to Shea Stadium all the time, and you know, got to see. I always talk about this. We went to Shea Stadium at the bottom of the ramp from the 7 train. There's this tall black gentleman with white hair signing autographs, and my grandmother's smiling like, "Who's that?" "That's Mr. Jackie Robinson." I'm like 9. I said, "Okay, who's Mr. Jackie Robinson?" "Well, that's the first colored man," her words, "first colored man to play in pro baseball." I figured my grandmother's losing it because baseball's been around 100 years. What, this guy 200 years old? She said, "No, colored man didn't play ball until 1947." And I'm like, "What? That doesn't make any sense." She said, "Exactly." And then that piqued my interest. Like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean 1947? And you start finding out, and like, oh man, this is kind of effed up.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. I tell you, man.
Right.
Hey, I'm gonna change a little bit of a subject before we, retire from this conversation. But have you had an opportunity to see the Ball Side Middle documentary?
I watched it. Yes, I did see it.
Okay, what was your take on it from your experiences?
I saw it a little while ago. It's just serious brothers who love the game, who are trying to pass on what they know to the youngsters. That about covered it, I think. It's everything is, you learn something from everybody. Everybody gives you something. Now, some people may be a doofus and like, okay, I know to stay away from him. That's what I learned. But there's a lot of guys out there who don't get the publicity, don't get the money, do it for the love, to just try and, as I say, pass the baton a little bit further than when you got it. And like I said, I mentioned each one teach one. I remember that, going to the Rucker and stuff like that, and guys trying to help the next generation. Some don't want to be helped, and nothing you can do about that. But when you're teaching the game or whatever sport it is, my first coach I remember was a white guy, baseball player. A coach named Butch. I can't think of his last name. But he, my first year, he believed in me, said, "You're playing, you're starting," and he quit, or it was something, he had a disagreement with the league and he quit. And I was so disappointed, because the guy we got was his cousin replaced him and he was good. Then he quit and we got somebody's father to be us, and nobody cared anymore. It's like, he would say, we'd steal when we wanted to, we bunt when we wanted to. And I said, this isn't right. That guy was a good coach. He knew what was going on. And you guys who played ball, I mean, look, I wasn't a good basketball player. I was a really good non-shooting guard. So what can I
non-shooting guard.
I think I was only when the full moon was out, I could shoot a little bit, but that was about it. But I enjoyed playing the game, love playing defense, which I can't understand why guys don't want to play defense. But yeah, I just admire people who know the history of the sport, the history of the game, even if not NBA history, but street ball history. The guys who taught them and left an imprint that, you take that and you go to the next guy and move it on, and hopefully it keeps moving along.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, my it's funny because I think about this a lot, about the documentary and what is perceived or what we're hoping to accomplish, and being the historian of that time frame of the years before us as well as years afterwards. My take on the documentary, kind of like behind the scenes, reflects for me, and I know a lot of guys feel this way, that a lot of us were interchangeable and could have been in the league. Leslie Miller could have easily have been in the league and not Rasheed Wallace, because he was Rasheed Wallace before Rasheed Wallace, that level of skill. And there were so many of us, makes that the story, and I don't know if people dig deeper and see the camaraderie of Brooklyn is so much different than how the Manhattan, role is, or Bronx, because no one.
Everything you've been through, I mean, and you're still fighting and getting the word out. I mean, that's to be appreciative.
Yeah, that's but we've stuck together through all of these years, and I can't say the same with guys in the Bronx that they're still hanging like the way guys do in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is like a together environment. Whereas the other boroughs, everybody did what they did and they're living their lives and gotten older. We're all still communicating and talking. And I know Harlem has a real Harlem basketball players page, and their guys participate there. But nowhere else in the country does, other than New York. The guys in Charlotte, they used to play like James Worthy grew up here. Those guys don't. The guys that from his town, they're not hanging out and playing in 30 and over, 40 and over, 50 and over, and interacting and having reunions. We're very unique in what we accomplished, as well as what we experienced and the sharing of it. And I'm thinking, and Les can attest to this or not, that Craig Booth put this together with that in mind.
Right.
To reflect on those things, and some other little short stories in there that people can see, like what you mentioned, and I'm hoping that it becomes like a cult type of following, because I really believe it deep down in my heart that it was an unbelievable time. I really do. And I'm not going to just say that just in passing. I really, if someone were to interview me, and the interviews I've done, it was very unique, and I've seen other areas. So that's why, my feelings are like that. And, but I'm also hoping that everybody enjoys it.
It was. It's funny. I took my son to my old neighborhood, the Forest Projects, my youngest son, for an old timers day. Like Don Adams of Taft was out there, and a lot of guys. And my son, we live in the suburbs, right? And he said, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." "Where's all the white people?" Man, they're gone a long time ago.
Yeah. And it's and even down to those are like the subcategories of the story is our economic situation in those days, how the communities changed over the years, and we forged through it with all of the things that are going on. Like a lot of people don't understand. Like I mentioned to people about the school bus situation, and you live in Windsor, right? East Windsor.
East Windsor, yeah.
And do your kids walk to school? Do they get on? Did they get on mass transportation like a city bus or New Jersey Transit on their own to go to school?
No, he take the school bus down the street.
Yeah, everywhere else in this country except for in Brooklyn, because there's no school buses there.
School buses only for the Catholic schools. We
got on regular MTA or the trains to go to school.
I used to take two buses to go to town.
Yeah. But you know who you're on the bus with, right? Just riding the buses during rush hour as an adult, you see the pickpockets, those guys leaning on women, getting excited. You see all kinds of people on the train. And third graders on the train. Come on.
Well, that's what I was thinking about this the other day, because I tell you, my grandmother always would, like during the summer, she called me up like, what are you doing today? I said, nothing. Let's go to Shea. And she, because it was Senior Citizens Day on a Wednesday, and we like when I saw Jackie Robinson, I was 9 going on 10. She said, "Okay, meet me at 42nd Street on the 2 train." And I get on the train. I never thought, think about it now. It never my youngest is in his 20s, but if he was young, I wouldn't let him get on the train. And I go to 42nd Street and we hook up and we take the 7. And I'd be like, "Well, I'm gonna be a gentleman. I'll see you home, Nana." And she said, No, I got stuff to do. You go ahead home. And here I am, 4:00 in the afternoon, taking the 2 on Fifth Avenue. And never thought about anything.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. It's real. People don't understand the gravity of that, because you would never do that with your child, and to know that we braved through that, and all the experiences of that, and then still became productive citizens. That, to me, that is a stronger story than the men that helped us do those things to become basketball players. Because the basketball part is really kind of minor when it comes to being a 12-year-old or 10-year-old. Traveling through the trains like that, like in this day and age with this, with the level of pedophiles running around, it's not safe.
Right.
Baseball, basketball, football, all the sports, track, that's life. You're getting life lessons, because not everybody's going to the pros. Now, I've coached so many kids in baseball. When they got out of high school, I said, "What are you gonna do in college?" "I'm done. I know I'm not going to the pros. I'm going to concentrate on my studies now." But you learn. As I said earlier, you'll play with a teammate that you're going to know him for the rest of your life. There's another guy, okay, I know he's going to jail. This guy I'm never going to see again. This guy's an idiot. I stay away from him. This guy I like hanging out with. You start making your own decisions as a youngster while they're coaching you the game.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's all learning. To me, it's all learning. And the opportunities associated with that, because we were even traveling at night, after school, late
Yep.
practices, and we're on the
Yep.
buses and trains. So I will always profess this, that it was such a time in New York City that allowed us to, grow up individually because of that. That made us quite a unique bunch of teenagers and youths at that time. And
Yeah.
but I would never change it, for anything in the world. I wouldn't want to. I would not have wanted to ride on a school bus. Believe me.
No.
I know, right?
And if getting on the buses going to school back then was like no big deal. It's like
Yeah.
Right.
let me just make sure I got my bus pass, because I ain't paying for this.
And a nickel.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that we've come a long way. It's a lot of things that have changed and things that have been done that have molded us for you to be able to go down the path that you went. And to follow this, sports world and covering sports at the level that you have. I have to take my hat off for you, because without, the proper and the, good news writers in our society, we wouldn't have had access to these sports heroes that we all look up to. And I thank you for that,
Yeah, man, absolutely.
And the guys that came before me, like Howie Evans at the Amsterdam News, and other, Wendell Smith, I think, of the Pittsburgh Courier. I mean, these guys that came before us, like I said to Ali about, you make it a little bit easier. That's what these writers do. Because Sam Lacey was a good friend of mine who was a great writer with the Baltimore Afro-American. And a quick story, he was down in Vero Beach covering the Dodgers, and the press box was segregated. So he went on roof of the building. We could sit up there and watch the game, and he's sitting in the sun. So Dick Young I think he was at the news back then. He said, "What's Lacey doing up there?" I said, "Let's go find out. He must be working on a story. That's how writers are. He must be on to find out what the story is." And Sam didn't say what it was. He said, "Well, I'm just working on my tan." And they all knew what the deal was. So all the white writers sat up there. But the guys running the press box, "What are y'all doing up here?" I said, "Well, Lacey's up here. And if Lacey can't come to the press box, why should we?" So you'll find some people will stand up, and that's how, Sam Lacey, I got the chance to talk to him, and when I was president of the boxing writers, we started an award called the Liebling Award for writers who never got mentioned, how great they were. And I said, I don't care who else you put on, Sam Lacey's getting an award, and he did. And and the funny thing was, Shirley Povich, who was a longtime columnist for the Washington Post, he went in too, and they knew each other because they're both like in their late 80s, and they knew each other. And I thought that was such a cool thing. The weird thing was, Shirley's son, Maury Povich, he showed up with Connie Chung for the thing. So it was
wow,
turned out real nice.
That's cool. That's cool.
I mean, and that's when you start to see the legends of your industry. And guys that, like you said, guys that were, not really recognized for their skill sets, but they had, I guess, in the writer's world, they had game.
Yeah, right.
They did.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
game knows game. Yeah. And so do the readers. The readers know game too.
They know.
So, we don't give them credit. They're not given enough credit that they should be, but the sports readers, they know they're there to learn too.
Yeah.
And, some of them get it, and they run with the information because it's, that they have access to it, and you're providing that service to them. And sports has been such an integral part of the society that it's incredible, man. That's what keeps my marriage together is sports. Be a good teammate, man.
Right? Absolutely.
Being a good teammate.
Oh yeah, man. I have to be the good teammate. She's the general manager.
Are you on a guaranteed contract?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I think so. After all these years, I think you're on
it. Thank you, Les.
The 10-day contract ended.
Yeah, no, she doesn't want my contract to end. You kidding me? Man, she loves me, man. I think I had to throw that I think in there, off the record,
right?
Off the record, Tony.
No, I know she loves you, brother.
Yeah,
Trust me.
definitely, man. But yeah, listen, it's been really great, Tony, speaking with you.
My pleasure. I'm glad.
I was having kind of like a little bit of a reservations because of the direction the show goes on, but this was definitely a breath of fresh air and enlightening as well. I mean, it really was an educational experience for me to understand this craft that we're going into now. I would like to know how you feel about everything, Les.
Yeah, man. I'm glad that I talk to Tony. Every time I talk to him, period, it's always interesting. I always learn something more about him. And he's one of the most humblest guys I've ever met to have such a long career, And I remember sometimes I had to pull his teeth. So really, you're the WFAN? So I can call in and, we have a barbecue and then he'll leave early to go. And then I'll call in after I'm having some beers. Hey, Tony, it's from West Windsor. We would have a good time, man. But, you've been a great friend, man. Our wives hang out together. You're getting me in trouble, though, because y'all taking all these great trips, man. And she's like, when are we going on a trip like that? But I appreciate your friendship, man. And appreciate you coming on this show today, man. It was really a good experience.
And I appreciate it. Anything I could do to help, I'm glad I had a good time. It was a conversation like being in the barbershop, except the hair ain't there no more. And
I know, right?
But it's need more shows like this. Like I said, anytime I can do anything I can do to help, just give a holler. I'm around.
All right, sounds good.
And Eric, it's a pleasure meeting you, man. You do a good job. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, listen, everybody. Once again, we're coming to an end to another episode for the ENL Sports Talk Show. We will once again thank our special guest, Tony Paige, for coming in and chatting it up with us and sharing some of his insights. I just want to let everybody know that this is going to be a show that's probably going to be taped and going to be viewed probably in about a month or so. But we're looking forward to it, and we definitely would like to see you guys at the next show. You guys be well, and thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you, Tony.
Hey, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, man.